good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, and welcome to this edition of the EGU podcast for awakening and emerging souls. We are here to help you thrive in mindset, energy, business, and all things spiritual. And I have a guest with me today who promises to bring us all that and some. I am Michelle Reinhardt, your abundance activator, the creator of Self and Soul Mastery for Abundance Seekers and the Entrepreneurs Globally Unite online community. And I would like to welcome you from the bottom of my heart. Shannon Walbran, thank you very much for guesting on our show.
Hi, Michelle. Thanks for having me. I'm very excited to be here.
I'm very excited to have you. We have a superstar with us, guys and girls, so please turn off your zings and pings. For 30 to 35 minutes, we may even go a little longer, who knows, we'll see what information comes flying through for us. And I'd love for you, Shannon, to tell us a little bit about you, particularly where your journey began.
Sure, thanks, Michelle. So I'm originally American, but I'm speaking to you from South Africa. I've traveled all over the world, and I landed here about 15 years ago. And being raised in a very Catholic but very academic family, I was brought up to believe that one had to succeed only in terms of the intellect. But there was a religious world, there was an invisible world, but it wasn't very interactive. It existed, but it existed for us to study and to learn about and to obey. And I questioned that even when I was a child, because I learned about the angels and saints. And I thought, but there was a lot of dialogue going on there. Could it have ended at the time of the Bible? Why are there no prophets today? And growing up in this very Western, very white society in Midwest America, I didn't have a lot of exposure to other ways of interacting with the invisible world. Until when I was 18, and then I went to university, and then I moved abroad, I started to travel. And travel, as we know, broadens the mind, but it opened my heart and soul to new ways of understanding that the divine is present, the divine is interactive, there is such a thing as an intervening source, and it's interacting with us all the time.
Whether we believe it or not.
Well, I think that the people who are listening to your podcast are probably already believers to some extent and are noticing things. So as you say, awakening souls. So awakening souls are people who are looking at the coin on the ground, are looking at the feather on the doorstep, are seeing 1111. Those are the beginning things that are just, as you say, taps on the shoulder to say, we're here, we're here. So my main mantra is, you are guided. And you don't necessarily need a psychic or an advisor or an intermediary to be guided. You were born guided. You always have been guided. It's just whether you know you're being guided or not. And then once you know that you are, then you can start having that conversation. And I think that's where things get really interesting.
Now that's the fun part for me. I feel that we get disconnected at some point in our lives, and it's often when we're a child. Do we need to tap back into our abilities? Do we need to go and reconnect?
Well, is it a must? No, you can go through your whole life without reconnecting, but it's much less fun, it's much less interesting, and it's much less dynamic. So once, I'll show you the benefits to it. Once you have reconnected and once you have opened up and once you see it and you believe it, or you believe it and you see it, whichever way you go with it, you start to make requests and the requests start happening. You start developing a language with your angels and guides and they start speaking the language back to you. So when you have a baby, Michelle, and your baby is just learning how to talk, like 10 months, 11 months, 12 months, 13 months old, and the baby says, for example, ba, ba, and then you have to guess. You're like, ba, do you mean bottle? Do you mean blanket? Do you mean turn on the light? Do you mean do the hula hula dance? Like whatever ba might mean, right? But once you and the baby decide that ba means blanket, then you say, oh, you need your blankie. Okay, I'll be right back. I'll go get your blankie. And she says, bah, and you say, oh, we did it. Okay, so then she's happy, you're happy, and now you know what bah means. The same thing happens with your guides, right? So you can decide that the color orange means creativity, because orange is the color of the sacral chakra. And then you can say, look, I'm struggling with writer's block and I want to make something new and I think I should write a blog post, but I just don't have it. And then you walk outside and all the flowers in the garden are orange. And you say, okay, I get it. Creativity. Today is the day to do my writing. Okay, I'll do it. You develop a word, and then another word, and then another word. And suddenly you're speaking as if it's a foreign language or a baby language.
You've triggered a gorgeous memory in me, and it's just to give a little background for our listeners that haven't caught up on my story. I am intuitive, and I've been a business owner for the last time I worked for an employer was when I was 26, and I'm 51. So it's been a long, long time. I'm a remedial masseur. I'm a healer, and I feel that there's something missing. And I know that that's the very thing that is missing. It's the thought. Now, I'm guessing that, and I've often said this, and I said it to you before, Shannon, that the questions that I have are always the questions that my listeners are fighting to ask. So what you said about the baby and the communication, I remember the first time my eldest yelled out, "Mama." And I was in bed with my husband and she yelled out, "Mama." And I've just exploded with joy, and I've burst out of the bed and I've flown into her room and picked her up and feel that that's how my guides should be speaking to me, that clearly. That's what I want. How do I get that?
Well, the answer is yes, you can get that, but it might not be verbal, okay? So almost everybody says, can't I have a radio in my ear? Can't I have a GPS that says, go forward 600 meters and then take a left, then proceed to Rose Avenue, okay? That is probably not going to happen. So I just want you to level out your expectations, right?
Sure.
Please don't even ask for Siri to be talking to you all the time.
Oh,
Please don't ask for that. You know, you can change the voice on Siri to other voices, you know. I changed mine to actually a very attractive Australian sounding man. So that makes my Siri much nicer to listen to.
Yeah.
The point being is that you were created with free choice and free will, and you are a divine being in your own right, and you, with your own DNA, your own family constellation, and your own unique thoughts and ideas, you really want to preserve that, okay? You really want to be Michelle, and you want to be Michelle forever. So if we become a cyborg where we implant Siri in our brain and Siri tells us to turn left and turn right, we're giving up some of that free choice and free will. So please do ask to have a dialogue with your guides on important matters, on things that you care about, not things that are like, should I drink water now? Should I blink now? Should I go to sleep now? You know, only if that's crucial to your health. Do you see where I'm going with that?
Yes,
it's better for us to compartmentalize and to ask for divine guidance when we need it, when we are stuck or when we are blocked or sick or having a problem. That's a good time to ask for help.
That's a really fantastic point that you make. We are humans. We're having a human experience. We're spiritual beings, of course. But we are here to experience everything that we as humans have the joy to experience. And if we hand that over, we're kind of not fulfilling our part of the role, are we?
To some extent. And then on the other hand, I mean, I can argue both sides of the situation. I'm a big one for surrender, right? I'm a big one for the recovery community, people who are in the fellowship who are saying, I have lived quite an ego-driven life, and now it's time for me to ask God what my next step is. What is the next right thing to do? So to live in surrender, to live in a way that says, I want to live a divinely directed life, is a good idea, but not in the everyday, which pair of socks should I wear? I mean, does it matter if you wear the pink socks or the blue socks? It really, guys, that's not a big deal. So to live in surrender is to talk about the broad strokes. It's to talk about what's my life purpose and how can I take steps towards that every day to do the next right thing.
Thank you. I think that's wonderful. When you're working with people, Shannon, what are some of the common questions that they have for you in terms of connecting to their guides?
Michelle, that is one of the best questions ever. Because, I've been on radio for a long time, and I collected the best questions that people asked, and I made them into a free ebook that's called 100 Questions for Your Angels.
Wow.
And it's free. So I'd like to offer it to you, and I'd like to offer it to your listeners, because there are some questions that people ask that do not get a good answer. Those questions are like, why me? Why is this happening to me? Okay, that doesn't get anything, to tell you the truth. Acting as a translator or an interpreter, right? I've worked with 25,000 people since 2003.
Wow.
Mostly because I work on radio and I can do 40 questions in an hour. And so that's why the numbers are so high, right? But I do one-on-ones like this, like I do one-on-ones. So in an hour, I usually cover 10 questions when I'm working deeply with a person. And the kinds of questions that people ask, and then how I help them shape the question so that they get an effective answer from their angels, is how can I fix this problem? That's the best kind of question to ask.
Okay. Yeah.
What should I do about my debt? What should I do about my marriage? Should I stay in this marriage or not? Should I have more children? How can I increase my income? What's wrong with my fill in the blank shoulder? And how can I fix that? And is it emotional? Is it physical? Is it all of the above? What's wrong with my stomach? And how can I fix it? And what should I do about it? And other questions are like really good questions. How can I contribute to my community? What's my life purpose? What are my spiritual gifts and how can I develop them? Like, how can I give back? And how can I be a better mother? And then it's especially important to say, how can I be a better mother to Maria, who is 6, rather than to say, how can I be a better mother? Because how can I be a better mother to Joseph, who is 10, might be a different question.
Yeah.
Because they're different kids, they're different people, and they have different needs. What are my love languages and how can I use them? What does my astrological sign have to do with my life? But then I ask them, so what are you? Are you a Virgo or what? I don't have to be psychic to know their ID number, right? I don't have to know their address, but I have to know the themes and the meanings that their guides are bringing through. So all of those get really good answers for a couple of reasons. They are I-based. So any question that says, is my husband cheating on me? I'm like, not touching that one. Or also, will they give me the job? Nope, can't do that, because that's fortune telling. That's asking about other people and their path and their karma. Nope, I don't do that. But, and I don't think you should ask that question either. I don't think that's kosher. I don't think it's valid.
Agreed.
And I also don't ask, but people do. People do try to ask that all the time. And then I also don't ask, should I move to Japan in 25 years? Because it's like 25 years, like a lot of things are going to happen. I could ask, should I start taking Japanese lessons? Or should I go work as a psychic at a center in Tokyo? Should I go Google psychic centers in Tokyo? I would really love to work in Tokyo as a psychic. That would be awesome.
Do you speak Japanese?
No. Should I take Japanese lessons? Yeah, probably.
Absolutely right. Okay, well, I'm going to take a golden opportunity here to ask you the question. What are my spiritual gifts and how do I develop them?
So, Michelle, you and I do not have an agreement to do that kind of work together.
We do not.
No, we don't. I haven't prayed yet. I haven't meditated. And I haven't asked your guides for permission to work with you. So what you're doing is going into a session, which could happen. That could totally happen. But what we're doing is an interview for your audience to teach them stuff. So after, I would love to answer your question, but after working at this for 13 years, right? Now it's 15 years. People will come up to me at a party, or they'll come up to me on the street. They recognize me from TV, and they'll say, I really need to ask you a question. I really need to ask you a question. And I'm like, hi, and your name is? Like, we don't have any kind of agreement. There's no energy exchange. I haven't contacted their guides or asked for permission to do the work. So the people in your audience could be budding psychics. They could be healers like yourself. They could be. So would somebody come up to you at a party and say, you know, my back is really tight. Do you think you could give me a little squeezy right here at the party? I don't know. Do people do that?
Well, my family certainly do that to me, but that's a family prerogative, I think. I think there's a broader message here, though, for our listeners, and that being whether they are talking business, energy, mindset, or spiritual, or all of the above, how important it is to have strong, firm boundaries.
But lovingly, right? Like I hope you might have felt a twinge of bad feeling when I said no, I can't answer your question. But and people might feel a bad feeling when they say, can I just pick your brain about social media, or can I just ask you a question about how to set up a website, you know? And you could say, actually, that's what I do for my work. Actually, that's what I get paid for. So my sessions are this much an hour. I'd love to schedule you in. Can I take your email and I'll put you on my calendar? I think that's a really good way to do it. But it's not only about the money. There's also a holy exchange going on. Like, do you think I'm talking to your guides right now? I'm not. I'm not online. When I'm shopping in the supermarket, right? And the woman goes like, should I get a divorce? I'm like, are these tomatoes fresh? You know, like we're not in that space. We're not in that environment.
Absolutely. So may I shift the topic a little bit, because of all
Totally.
of the just the full moon that we've just come through, the solar eclipses, we're heading into a Lionsgate and on the 8th of August. The veil between spirituality and physicality is getting thinner and thinner. It is easier and easier for us to bridge those communications now than it ever has been, isn't it?
Yes.
Is there some advice that you can offer our listeners that can help them to perhaps speed up that process for themselves so that they can get the insight, support, and the help that they need so that they can thrive in their lives and in their business?
Absolutely. And this applies to your question, what are my spiritual gifts and how can I develop them? So I am going to answer it, but I'm going to answer it in a roundabout kind of a way. It is to claim that your intuition is a valid speaker at the table. Your mind is also a valid speaker at the table. So which one is better at doing a spreadsheet? The brain is better at doing a spreadsheet than the intuition, okay? But whether you should do the spreadsheet in the morning or the afternoon, you know, when are you going to feel good and fresh and alert in order to do the spreadsheet? The intuition might be the better one to ask. Might be the better one to ask, should I go drop off my daughter at work, or should I try to reschedule that meeting? You know, ask your intuition, do you think that that's a good thing for me to do? Not will they agree to reschedule the meeting, but should I at least try? Okay, yeah, I'll try. Okay. What's wrong? What's going on with, oh, I guess I'm hungry. Okay, so the body is a speaker at the table. So we are many voices. We are a circle of voices. And to say out loud, I have an idea. I have a hunch. I think that might be the right house to buy. I have a hunch that maybe I should run a retreat. I don't know, I just have a hunch. That is the way to work with the thinning of the veils, by voicing my hunch rather than crushing it. And your spiritual gift, and the one that you're sharing with your audience, is voice it. Let's be courageous. The lion roars. And we can say, you know, I have an idea that I should do this. And then does life, then we check with real life. Does life, the big life, support that idea? Do opportunities come? Does somebody knock on your door? Are the flowers orange? You know, let's see some real life evidence. Or am I forcing it? Am I saying, that's got to be the house I buy, or it's got to be the house I buy, and then the bank doesn't give you a bond and nobody lends you the money, and you look at your account and you don't have enough for that house. Okay, life is not really supporting that hunch. Okay, it was just an idea. Fine, no big deal. And then move on. Does that make sense to you?
It makes perfect sense, and it backs up the support for me that the more we push, the more out of alignment we are. If we allow ourselves to flow and to feel and to go with that flow, that feel, that's great. And I do say to people all the time, if it feels light, it's right. go with it.
That's a good way.
If it
That's a good way
feels
to put it.
really heavy and yucky, don't. It's,
I would like to take it also beyond the feeling part, okay? Because people can misinterpret their feelings according to their ego.
true.
But I want that love relationship. I want it. I want to marry George. And George is like already married and has 7 children. You know, you're like, but it's George. I know it's George. And so to me, it would feel, oh, George, it feels so light. It feels so right. You know, because that's my ego talking.
That's what you want.
But, you know, does George, you know, is George single? Does George phone me? You know, is George like pursuing me as much as I'm pursuing him? Or is it a fantasy? So what does life show me? So I like the light. I like the, if it's light, it's right. Okay, good. I'm good with that. And then look at the real life. So that's where the body comes in. Use your real senses, your 5 senses, to say, what's actually happening here? You know, do I have clients? Am I getting paid for what I do? Oh, if not, maybe I should run some ads. Yeah, not, I am a healer, but I don't have a website. Oops, there's something missing here.
Agreed. And it's interesting, isn't it? Because you went and looked on my website, I think probably before you agreed to the interview.
Sure, yeah, I went and checked you out.
Before I agreed to the interview, I checked your site out too, and I felt into a match, and it felt like this would be a great thing for our listeners when I extended that energy further. So it's a great thing to implement them all and not and use all of our talents and skills. Use them all, bring them all back to play.
That's it. So the feeling is super important. You know, the feeling, the intuition, the body is super important. The mind is super important. The brain, the thinking brain, the frontal cortex. We need all of these things. That we are created as a whole, you know, as you say, as you can think of the speakers around the table. Let's bring everybody in. And the guides are there. The guides are sitting around the table too. And they're working with all of our senses, giving us a tap, giving us a notice.
Oh my gosh, they just must be so frustrated with me.
I don't know. I mean, let's take even this interview because you're bringing it up. You saw my name or I contacted you. I don't remember how our first contact was. I think I said, yes, I'm available. When you put up a post that said, I'm looking for people to interview for my podcast. So I said, yes, you checked me out. But I mean, if you hadn't listened to your guidance, we wouldn't be having this conversation. So our guidance is running all the time. It's running all the time. It doesn't have to be a voice in your ear. It can be, yeah, I should probably do that. Yeah, that sounds good.
I like that. I think that it's also very important to differentiate between the voices that are in our mind at the moment as to whether they are working for us or against us. You mentioned the ego voice before. And again, I like to invite people to listen to that voice that is soft and loving.
So what are the main differences between the ego voice and the voice of guidance? That's a good question. Do you do the morning pages by Julia Cameron in The Artist's Way? Have you ever done that practice?
I have done them quite some time.
It's nice, huh?
Yeah.
I just picked it up again. I've done The Artist's Way, I think 3 or 4 times. I'm not sure whether I got all the way through the book, but I picked it up again. And I'm doing the morning pages. She asks you to, just for your audience, in case you haven't heard of it, the book is The Artist's Way by Julia Cameron. And it's a 12-week program in a book that's to unlock your creativity, but it's also really, honestly, to get in touch with your divine guidance. That's really what it's about. It's so perfectly, she doesn't talk about that, but it's about the divine flow. It really is. So in the morning, she asks you to take a normal notebook and to write 3 pages without stopping. And I'm hungry, and I wonder what I should have for breakfast, and that dream that I had, and I'm really mad at my dad, and that thing, oh, and I remembered that, and just nothing. Just everything, flow, doesn't have to be beautiful. It's not poetic at all. It's not creative. In fact, you don't even ever have to look at it again. But sometimes recurring themes will come up, and you'll notice them, phrases, or you'll start to get grateful. You know, you'll say, oh, I'm just so glad to be alive. Thank you, God. Thank you, God. And so it is a way to purge, to get rid of it's a brain dump, to get rid of the nonsense. And then it's a way to tap in. And sometimes you'll get, by the way, you should really go to the library today. You know, there's something there for you. Oh, okay. Sometimes you'll get some channeling or some guided writing. So yeah, I've been doing that as a practice.
Yeah, it's nice nice thing to do. I did it quite a few years ago, and I will. I'll pick that up and give it another try because I remember I
It's
love to journal. I love to write. That's where I get my creative juices flowing, and it is a beautiful way to build that connection.
Yes. And there is a lot of nonsense in the head. So our question was, to circle back, what's the difference between the ego voice and the guided voice? So the ego voice is a worried voice. It's a scared voice, and it's quite repetitive. It sounds like a hamster on a wheel. So for someone who has obsessive compulsive disorder, it might sound like, did I turn off the stove? Did I turn off the stove? Did I turn off the stove? You know, people who go back and check the stove 100 times before they leave the house. So it's that kind of a unnecessary, repetitious, fearful voice that doesn't actually get you anywhere. So once I've checked the stove, you know, once or twice, fine, I can leave the house. It's cool.
Yeah.
But that voice doesn't stop.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas a guided voice is direct, specific, and short. It's quite brief. So I can give you an example, which is a little bit extreme, but 3 times in my life I've had what's called an external locution. It means a voice that sounds like it's coming from an announcer, you know, like a PA system.
Yeah.
And one of the times was when I was at university, and a voice said, "Teach," like that. And I wasn't an education major, and I thought that was kind of not for me. I thought it was kind of naff, you know, so I was like, really? And while I've got you online, could I please ask you about this boyfriend? Because I'm thinking, you know, like he's the one. And I got nothing. So I went and signed up, and I got an education minor. Like I started taking education classes. And after I graduated, I became a teacher, and I went and moved overseas, and I taught in various countries. Why? So that I could study and learn the spiritual practices of these different countries, and so that I could have these big life impactful experiences. Some of them were terrible, but some of them were awesome. And being an English teacher, you know, being a native English speaker and then teaching overseas was a great ticket at that time to move anywhere I wanted to move. So that solved a lot of my problems, and I wouldn't have known that. So that was a wonderful input. But just teach rather than, I wonder what I should do. Should I get a job? Or should I go into corporate? Like maybe I should be a marketing specialist? I don't really know. That's the ego voice.
Yeah. Thank you for that. Now, in terms of your ideal client, how would you describe them?
So I do see clients one-on-one like this, and that can be, I would say, almost anybody. I know that sounds like a terrible niching, right? Like I don't really niche. So it's any adult who wants to connect with his or her guides and believes in it already. So when people say, I'm really a skeptic, and I'm like, no, I don't really want to work with you. You can go talk to somebody else. I'm not interested in that game. It's a dumb game, and I don't like to play it. And it doesn't really go that well. So when someone already believes, and then they get answers, I bring them lots and lots and lots of guidance. I work with those kinds of clients once per year. And then I say, see ya, you've got a lot of homework. I'll talk to you in another year.
Beautiful.
Then I've got VIP clients that are in a small coaching group, and I have women, and I'm about to develop a men's group, and I do want to keep them separated. And those guys, I answer one question per day, every day of the week, Monday through Friday, and then they make progress, steady progress, and they have moved overseas, they've gotten into new relationships, they have massive health changes, their income has tripled, they're really making big shifts in their lives because of the steady hand holding, and then the circling back, the failing, the getting back on the horse. So for those, I'm looking for women who are 35 to 60, who are already international and who are very successful business women who already believe and who have already worked with me in the past. So that's a much more VIP focused kind of a group.
And then you extend your service right back down to an online course with Daily Om as well.
You're right. And I have a free Facebook group called Shannon Walbran Psychic School. So that's for people who are like, what does a feather mean? You know, is there such a thing as an angel? You know, should I even ask? So that's for muscle testing. Do you do muscle testing for
I
yourself?
certainly do. Yeah.
What does it look like? What's your technique?
I stand up. I prefer to be standing up.
You do
I can lie to myself when I'm using my fingers. So yeah, I do. I go forward or back. Forward's usually the yes, and back for no. So certainly do that. And I've introduced that to many of my clients who just about fall over when they see how easy it is to get
They just about fall over. Yes, they do, don't they?
It is. It's wonderful when and my ideal client is the person that is almost broken and knows that there is another way but doesn't know how to get on that path. So it's a beautiful journey to take them with all the way until they can actually walk alone in strength and courage and conviction. And then I go, right, who's next? Because it's a beautiful thing to do. That is, and I work with a lot of youth, a lot of children, and a lot of teenagers, mostly females, mostly girls, and we just reintroduce them to their truth. And it's so beautiful to see the lies just disappear and dissolve, and they step into this beautiful vision of themselves in their completeness, and it's just beautiful.
Michelle, I think that's so necessary, especially because the rates of depression and addiction are rising so rapidly that I think you're going to be preventing suicides and other tragedies. So I see you if we were both working in a hospital, I think that you're triage. I think that you're in the emergency room, greeting people who are really, they're just in big trouble. And then I'm upstairs, right? Maybe in the rehab ward or something. So after they've gotten stabilized and they're okay, and they're like, I really want to get back to my real life now. Now I'm all right. I'm off the drugs, or my wounds have been patched up and stuff, and I'm fine. Then I say, okay, let's do some occupational therapy. Let's do some what's next and how can I make it happen. Now you're ready to take the next steps. So I think we're both working in the same hospital.
I think we are. I got goosebumps from top to toe, and they never lie.
Goosebumps! You are psychic. I promise you're psychic.
I do know that.
It's happening just at the right pace.
Oh.
Thank you for having it unfold at the pace that I can accept and receive it. I'm so grateful for everything that I'm learning and applying in my life.
And I am so deeply grateful, Shannon, that you've taken some beautiful time out of your day to spend with me and our gorgeous listeners.
Yay! Greetings from South Africa, across the ocean. I've never been to Australia. What city are you based in?
I'm in Melbourne.
Oh, I'd love to come to Melbourne. Yeah, I think we should. What about running a retreat? You want to set something up?
Wow, I'd love to. That's definitely on my list. So we can
do
the hospital retreat.
From triage to triumph. Yeah.
That's hilarious. On that note, guys and gals, we must depart for today. I would like to remind you that to make it to the next level in your lives, we all need support. We need accountability, and we need to understand how and why we hold ourselves back so we can start to heal and we can begin to thrive. Shannon, I would, with your permission, share your free gift in the notes.
Yes, please do.
And all your links, I'll grab them from you as well, right through from your free Facebook group, right the way through to your VIP clients. And
excellent.
I am so excited to share with our listeners your knowledge, your wisdom, and your experience. Thank you so very much for joining me today.
God bless. Thank you for having me, Michelle. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Goodbye. We'll see you next week, everyone.